Welcome back, everyone, to yet another amazing, phenomenal episode of Tevora Talks. I am your host, Cash, and joined by my partner in cybercrime, Mr. Clayton Rhiness. How you doing, Clayton? What's going on? Happy whatever day it is.
Yes, thanks, Cash. Good to be here. Hope you're doing well.
Doing well as always. Can't say the same for the cyber community because there's always some kind of threat lurking around the corner, but it keeps us employed, right? Job security.
100%.
But speaking of job security, and ironically, we're in security, right? But a lot of cool stuff. I think I wanted to share a couple cool stories I saw in the news recently. I think you mentioned you have a couple that you wanted to share as well, but maybe we can just straight jump into it. I don't know if you saw this one. I thought it was kind of it's an interesting thing to think about, like why, and at the same time, we all kind of had this concern around it a little bit, but now it's a whole different style of concern. But the company DJI, I'm sure you've heard of them, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. They make like, cool cameras, gizmos, all these things, but they got more and more so famous around drones. So they started really making drones, and then of course the camera surveillance part got embedded into the drone systems. And now for, 100, $200, anybody out there could really have like this, relatively advanced surveillance drone floating around the sky, right? And some of these things, of course, they go from like pocket size all the way to these giant ones that are professionally used for, cinematic productions, etc. But here's the twist. We all know, I mean, how many times have you been like maybe in your backyard and a neighbor is like flying a drone over and you're like,
Oh, yeah. It's super annoying.
it's annoying and it's like, dude, are you recording me? I'm like trying to relax in my backyard, right? So there's that factor of it, but that's kind of where my thought process went the whole time. It's like, dude, little kid, like, don't have your drone fly over my house, right? But there is actually a lot of like aerospace restrictions for these things, right? Some cities I know have tried to put ordinances in place where you can't fly drones here and whatnot. They'll ticket, but I mean, come on, if everybody's flying a drone, how are you gonna
Yeah.
ticket to everybody?
Yeah,
And
they're
there's no
supposed to
like
be tagged and all that, but it is weird that you have a public place even where drones are allowed. Even if is no expectation of privacy, it's still creepy to have a drone flying around, potentially recording everything, right?
it's super weird. But this is, I think, the weirdness kind of extended on a ban of DJI drones. And recently, the US government, they voted that DJI drones, any new DJI drones, are going to be banned in the United States. And they just recently voted on this. And it's going to essentially, it's going to prevent DJI from releasing any new models in the US. Now, there's a lot of different reasons of why and whatnot, but you know how we um it's I think related to security mostly, right? Kind of what we were talking about. It's like this data is saved, and once any device, IoT device, connects to online, what's the security mechanism about these devices? Where is this data going? How safe are we, etc. There's a lot around it, of course. I'm sure there's a lot of monetary reasons around these things as well, but it kind of
Yeah.
boils down to some of these Chinese technologies being implemented in these systems, in addition to, the chips and all these things, but some of the batteries that they're using, etc. But I don't know. I just thought it's pretty crazy that they're completely banning new sales of these drones. And I wonder, I don't know, what's your take on it? What do you think about that?
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's probably a smart move, just security wise, right? Especially these Chinese drones. I think what's most affecting folks, what I read is the capabilities of the domestic drones aren't really there, like the range and the capability. And of course, the DJI ones are relatively inexpensive. So there's a need to just say, hey, we need this capability, right? We need these drones. So in the short term, yeah, I think it's going to have a detrimental effect, but I think it's probably warranted given the risk. But, I think, eventually those other manufacturers should be able to catch up. There's no reason why we can't build a good drone, in the free world, so, I suspect we'll catch up at some point.
And just to be clear, this is, if it's a kind of grandfathered. If you already have one and you're flying around, cool. But something along the lines of once this bill's passed, users won't be able to fly any new drones in the country. It's kind of
Yeah,
prohibit them from operating on any communication infrastructure, which is crazy, right?
yeah, pretty
Um,
wild.
Pretty wild because like two ways sparks my curiosity. Mine is like, where in the government is there like this master firewall that says like disable
Yeah,
drone? How does that work? I think that's freaking cool, but nonetheless, wild, right? Wild.
yeah. I'm not
Um,
a big fan of banning things, but sometimes it's necessary.
but yeah, it kind of goes down to data safety, data theft, and that's really everything about cybersecurity, right? Where is data? Where is it going? How is it going there? Who's
Right.
authorizing it? And to kind of add on that, check this out. Fortinet. You're familiar with Fortinet, big
Yeah.
company. They have confirmed that data belonging to a quote small number of its customers have been breached. Um, Approximately 440 gigabytes of information. And it's been claimed to have got the data from an Azure SharePoint site, which got, not unauthorized access to the SaaS environment, et cetera, and, kind of peel back the layers as you go, right? So
Yeah.
they're saying it's only impacting a very, very small subset of their customers, right? They have almost 1 million customers. They're saying it's like less than 1% of the customer base they have, but still, right? That's, 1% of 1 billion is still a big number, right? So,
Yeah, that makes sense if it's on. I think if it's on a SharePoint site, I mean, I would suspect it's some Teams information or maybe, customer success or client success, right? Some sort of group has their information on SharePoint. I wouldn't expect just standard customer information to be backed on a SharePoint site necessarily, right? Azure certainly, but SharePoint probably not. So I imagine it's probably one of those groups. But we do hear about that a lot where it's, oh, this company got hacked, but it's really this one group that's using this one system for a specific purpose that's usually ancillary to the core product functionality, right? It sounds like that may be the case here.
and I think like this kind of just puts that risk up, right? When we're putting things into the cloud has a lot of amazing benefits, right? Redundancy, high availability, et cetera, right? You don't have a little single point of failure unless you're not setting up your infrastructure in the cloud correctly.
Yeah.
But that said, we have to have a lot of our trust in the cloud, right? Our service providers, our software as a solution providers, right? There's a lot that we're just assuming and hoping just because we have a big name behind it. I think the big name kind of makes us a little blind to are they secure, right? Not to say that they aren't, and not to discredit a lot of these large organizations that are putting every dollar into their security mechanisms, right? But still, it's just a big scary point. I don't know.
Yeah, it's I think it's those fringe or those edge use cases, right? I mean, I'm sure the product gets a lot of testing. All the web apps get testing. All the remote updates. I mean, they make network equipment, right? I'm sure that's thoroughly tested. But here you have one instance of probably one business unit using a specific tool, and maybe they didn't reconfigure it or configure it correctly, and then you have this issue, right? So I think the nucleus, the core of it's probably very secure, and then you have all these other things on the edge that could be causing these issues. And it's just it's like you said, it's a shadow IT use case. It's you have to have line of sight and visibility into what's out there.
Yeah, and it kind of goes exactly what you said. That maybe the core is solid and they've given the ability to have these tools in place and hey, this is how you lock down your environment. But it's kind of like anybody can go spin up an AWS instance, right? It doesn't take a lot of skill necessarily. I mean, it can get very, very involved and it gets very challenging to do, right? But you can follow along like a YouTube video also and get your basics set up. But beyond that, there's a lot, right? Source code, people are using API keys. They're not like, for example, like not to kind of take away from AWS, but Google, how many people share documents in Google, right? They put it on a drive and then maybe they public share that link. They don't know that they made it a public link necessarily, maybe the average Joe. And boom, there you go. Your link is public, little scrape bot going out there will find it. And That's it. Your data has been exposed. So
Yeah, that's all it
I
takes.
think it's all it takes, right? So I don't know. I don't know what the solution is. Maybe make it easier for the average guy to just out of the box have a secure setup. But I don't know, DLP, there's a lot that goes into data loss prevention.
Yeah, it
But we'll
is.
see
Well,
that
even
maybe
SharePoint, I mean, SharePoint is sort of glorified file share, right? So the file share issues of your 20 years ago now manifest as a SharePoint misconfiguration, right? And I think this is along the same lines. It's got to stay on top of that shadow IT, right?
indeed. But that said, that's all I got. That's all I wanted to vent about.
Yeah, good. Good. I saw something that piqued my interest this morning. A Ford Motor Company had filed a patent to be able to listen to you in your car, and you'll love this part, to
Okay.
use your location data and what it's hearing to be able to serve you ads, audio and visual ads, it says in the patent, right? So I don't know. Obviously a creepy privacy issue, but can you imagine? I mean, you're like, hey, Ted's Taco Barn is offering 15% off. Should I navigate you there right now? You're like, oh my gosh, I'm gonna drive my car into
Well,
a ditch right now. And I don't want that at all. So it was just really rubbed me the wrong way. It felt super creepy.
yeah, that's
What are
like
your thoughts?
I don't know, invasion of privacy for sure. I mean, what's more private than a car condo, right? It's like two people in
Yeah,
like a little box having a private conversation. Now that's being sent to the cloud somewhere and analyzed.
I know, being correlated with your location information. Yeah, you're right. I think, the car is like a sanctuary, especially if you're if you're part of the back in the office folks, or part of that crew, right? 5 days a week. You want that car time, and you want that car time to not be on the record necessarily. Not that anything nefarious is happening, but there needs to be a reprieve. And if you think your car's listening to you all the time, I don't know, that doesn't sit right with me.
You know what's, I don't know, my brain just went down this path, right? If you're doing any kind of ad marketing, you can kind of track where did your ad land, who you get some kind of criteria feedback, right? If people fill out a form, then it'll go to your mailing list, etc. So to your point, the taco stand, let's say my ad was displayed on, one Ford vehicle today. What other data does it give the taco guy? Does it say like, your ad was displayed on John Smith's, Ford Mustang today?
Yeah.
This location in wherever, Texas, for example. But I don't know, some concerns.
It's just
Some concerns.
creepy, and we've all had that experience too. We talk about like, "Oh, I want like a landscape architect," and then an hour later you log into, Instagram and you get ads about landscape architecture, and you're like, "Oh my gosh, this thing's listening to everything I'm doing," right? And now it's like, "Oh, maybe your car is also." It's like, "Oh, where can you go?" You know?
Yeah, where do you say that's not gonna work out for the mafia out there? They can't have those conversations in their car anymore. I used to
Exactly.
see in the movies they used to run to payphones randomly,
Yeah,
right? Now they can't even have a car convo. Every
the
car's bugged.
every car's bugged. People are gonna be cutting the microphones out with an X-Acto knife, yeah, trying to get that some
There's gonna be
privacy.
this whole rebellion against
Yeah.
automated vehicles in the future. Now imagine it add to that, or like the car starts just randomly driving you there. Maybe it defaults to some function and
Right.
like it errors. It's like you want to go to the taco stand. You're like, no, I don't want to go to the
Yeah.
taco stand. It's like taking you to the taco stand. It's like,
Yeah.
no, don't stupid taco stand.
Or maybe it ramps up, like it offers you 15%, but if you just press the button, have the autopilot just drive you there automatically, they'll give you 20%. Like, you know, subscribe now. Anyway, pretty
Yeah,
creepy.
pretty creepy. Give me some money out of it, and maybe I'll change my opinion a little
Yeah.
bit. Like, give me 50% off the Ford car, and we'll talk.
Right.
But that is wild. That is wild.
Yeah. I had something also. I was thinking about our previous podcast. We talked about, people hiring fake employees and that whole laptop farm issue, still prevalent,
Yeah,
by the way. Uh, I saw something that's on the flip side of that. So this Lazarus group out of North Korea
yeah.
is basically having fake interviews. So they're not actually there isn't actually a job opening, but they're getting people to apply, and these are for coding positions. And in this case, they're actually distributing them a malicious Python package. was like, oh, you
Uh,
want this coding job? Like, okay, run this package and do this demonstration of your skills and submit it to us. And basically what they're sending is something malicious that gives them access to their system. Uh, Pretty wild because you want that job, you want to go with the flow, you want to run what they're asking you to do, right? So you're sort of in the wrong mindset for security, and they've been apparently very successful in getting people to get this payload. So pretty crazy
that's
out there.
wild.
Yeah.
What do you do about that? Because like you won't know. I mean, the average guy that, comes fresh out of college, they don't I mean, in my college program, they don't teach you necessarily on those programs where how to do secure coding, right? It's just learn the fundamentals of coding. And then
Yeah.
of course, if it's in on the job, you'll get coding practices. But even some companies out there, they still don't have secure code everywhere, all these malicious libraries. So let alone this guy, to your point, gets a file and it's like, here, add to the, go download from this Git repo and add to the code and get it working.
Yeah, isn't that crazy?
That's
Yeah, I
crazy.
would never think like, oh, this employer is trying to hack me. It isn't a real job, isn't a real employer or recruiter or whatever, right? So
What are they trying to get at? What happens? Like a backdoor gets dropped on there, or is it malware?
exactly,
Or
yeah, and they steal the information there, get your personal information, card information, just traditional like phishing type attack information for an
that's
individual user. Yeah,
there's like some kind of pending threat around every corner.
I
What do we
know.
do? Just
It's
don't open any emails anymore.
that's yeah, go off grid maybe.
We
That's
got we got to revert back to like the 80s, just hardwired phones. That's it.
yeah, exactly.
Maybe we'll regress. It's the beginning of the end of IoT. Who knows? DJI got banned. Ford's trying to listen to us.
Yeah, I know. We're not going in a good way. And well, there was another one that came up as far as like preying on people that may need jobs. In this case, it was groups that may be grieving. People have funerals and they post like, hey, here's the streaming link to this funeral, right? On Facebook or other places. And
That's
there's been cases of this group running about 6,000 different domains to scam people into basically clicking on or signing into a phony funeral stream. So you can imagine you hear about someone passing, you're like, oh, I can't be there, but I'm going to check out the service. Okay, well, you click on the link and it's like, oh, well, you've got to pay a little bit to see this service, and you give your credit card information, right? It's not actually the right link. It's not actually a page that was put up by the group that's running the funeral. It's phony, right? So you're putting in your info, they have your credit card information, right? You're just like, oh my gosh, I just want to pay my respects or see this service, and now you're being preyed upon yet again. Pretty messed up. I think I read about it. As I think law enforcement took it down, but they had like I said, about 6,000 different domains where they were phishing people and getting people to click links and submit information and get card information for fraud. So pretty wild.
that's freaking wild. I mean, you know, I don't know how busy these government folks are that are just trying to combat and bulk take down these things, and the number of alerts and reports they get on the daily has to be enormous. I
Yeah.
can't even what their SOC team is like behind the scenes.
Yeah, so
I,
much stuff happening. So you can't even grieve safely. Apparently, you may get defrauded. So that's
that's terrible,
another
man.
something to be mindful of. Yeah.
They keep shifting, right? It's always prey on the weak. I remember back in the day, there was all these scams targeting the elderly folks, right? Trying to scam them out of their money, click on this, everything, and that's terrible. Now they're grieving.
Yeah, not good.
As
I
they
got
say,
one more for you, Cash, if you got a minute.
yeah, you drop it on me.
I saw this thing come across, piqued my interest. The TSA has a known crew member or KCM program. Basically, if you're a pilot, flight attendant, someone a crew member, right?
Okay.
You can badge in obviously through the different line in the airport. You may have seen this, right? If you got pre-checked, they kind of like go to the front with their stuff and they've always got the black bag and they're just rolling through,
Sure,
right?
sure. Yeah.
Obviously, very obviously crew member, they have special credentials, clearly, right? Well, that's a whole system, like a whole web app system to like register and track all these people that's public. And I guess it had like a SQL injection and you can read the write up on this. It is absurd how simple the SQL injection was. Like if you take a class and you're learning about web coding 20 years ago and they demonstrate SQL injection, it is that rudimentary. It is the simplest SQL injection you could possibly conceive of. And you were able to basically push commands or execute SQL commands at will. So you could add yourself to the crew system. You could have it use credentials that you've got. So if you've got an RFID badge or whatever they were using, NFC, something else, you could put the correct string in there. So when you do go to the airport and you do badge in, it all checks out because it's this one system, right? I couldn't believe SQL inject. Now, I mean, we do a lot of pen testing. You know, how often do you get that a pure SQL injection in 2024?
That's nuts.
Not
Like that's
often. Yeah.
the movie kind of vibe.
And this includes people that get into the cockpit. You know, this is like you conceivably, if you look the part, you could probably roll right on and at least get onto the plane. I don't know that you can get all the way in because, you know, the other crew members are there, but still, it's pretty wild that its basic SQL injection could lead to that level of exposure.
I mean, what are they doing about it? The first concern that comes to mind right now is how to validate all the known crew members right now.
Right. That's what I said. Yeah, they said like, oh, we patched it. I'm like, well, okay, well, maybe we need to do a little more there. I don't know that there's, like you said, there's who's vetting what was already made or put in there or changes recently, or how long has this even been existing? And what, yeah, I agree. There should be some reconciliation of who's a valid crew member.
And how the heck are you going to do that? Imagine, I don't even know how big that database is, but I bet it's a very, very large database of people.
Yeah, it's probably hundreds of thousands because it's like all the baggage handlers and everybody else. You know, everybody who's got that crew badge at an airport potentially is in this system.
Yeah, exactly. So how do you know if there's like 10 more people in there?
Yeah, yeah,
I don't,
it's wild.
what would you even do on a security side? You have to get like the crew lists of every airline globally. I don't even know how extensive or how far this known crew member extends. Is it only
Yeah,
domestic? Is it for international? I don't know.
I don't
Right.
know. Yeah, yeah,
But
scoping would be very important there in that incident. But yeah, who knows?
who knows? Because like to your point, if they patched it yesterday, but this hole's been there for, let's just give them a short term 1 month,
Yeah,
maybe say what new users were created in the past 1 month. But if that 1 month is like a year or more, good luck. There's
yeah.
no way.
It kind of tickled my spidey sense. Like they just said, "Oh, we patched it, we're fine." Like, well, hold on. uh, I didn't really hear much about it. Like this kind of seems like a bigger deal than they're making it seem, which didn't
Big time.
sit right with me at all. Yeah, and I had similar questions. Like this may have been around for a very long time. How do we not know that, right? And my goodness, even the basic web scanner can find this. So what kind of testing are they actually doing on this web app? Makes you wonder.
And beyond that, I mean, like you've seen it. You know, you go through TSA pre-check. You still got to scan your bag and stuff, but they're a little bit more laxed on the security there. And then the standard line. But the crew members, they're significantly more laxed, right?
Yeah,
Everybody's like, if I'm dressed up like a pilot, I look like a pilot, my badge scans that I'm a pilot, it's like, hey, how's it going, sir? Come on through. I don't know.
yeah. I've seen them
Like,
come through and they barely even like stop or slow down. Like they just like, okay, what's up? And then badge in. Okay, you're good. Keep walking. Right. They barely break
yeah,
stride. So
man,
pretty
have to.
funny.
TSA's got to maybe boost their security protocol to start validating every crew member somehow at this point. That's
Yeah.
going to be, I would imagine. Somebody up there has to be freaking out, but they're maybe pushing on the rug. I don't know. Who knows?
I don't know. Definitely something to keep an eye on.
For our listeners out there, if you see something, say something. And as always, stay vigilant. We're fighting crime all together collectively, one day at a time. Hopefully, nothing more extreme pops up for this round of Tevora Talks, but I'm sure there's always more around the corner. That was a crazy story. I'm glad you brought that one up. I'm gonna dig it. I'm gonna go rabbit hole that one a
Good
little bit
stuff.
more.
Yeah. Well, hopefully we picked up all the listeners this round, with like, hey, your car's listening to you. You can't even die peacefully, and maybe your, flight crew may be compromised. Anyway, have a nice
Without adding to the general public's paranoia, it's
yeah.
going to be and for those
Yeah,
there are crime fighters constantly combating these things to protect you. So don't freak out.
100%.
It's all under control. It's controlled chaos, maybe a little bit. But with that said, thank you for jumping on again, as always, Mr. Rhiness. And any final last words of wisdom for our amazing audience?
Nothing else here. Thank you all. Appreciate you all listening. Thank you, Cash.
Thank you, sir. And as always, it's been amazing. We'll be back to bring you more. Don't forget to like, subscribe, drop some comments. If you guys figure out a way to get a hold of me and Clayton, do your own little bit of cyber skill practice. Find us, send us a message. We'll send you something cool. And with that said, thank you all for listening. Until next time.